Well, that was a movie.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my first thoughts on Raya and the Last Dragon. So, in case you don't know, Raya and the Last Dragon is the new Disney animated movie that came out this year. It is what it sounds like it is. It's about a girl seeking to find the last dragon. She's trying to save the world because there's this Druid race thing, I guess. They're described as a plague, but they seem to be some kind of monster that turns everybody into stone. So she needs to find the dragon because the dragon has the capability with a special magical stone to turn everybody else back to people again. So this movie is obviously Disney. It's very Disney, and it seems to be part of their new genre of fantasy adventure, where it's very much like the Moanas and stuff like that. Unlike Moana, this seems to be much more by the books type fairy tale. It's very, very predictable. It does everything by the numbers, by the books, until one singular moment that's like 20 minutes from the end. I predicted everything that was going to happen way before it happened. Talking in the first 5 minutes, you know what's going to happen in the last 5 minutes type stuff. It's hard to rate kids movies because you know it's designed and made for kids, so there's going to be some things you kind of have to just let go. But at the same time, we know with Disney in the past that they've made movies designed for kids that were good for all ages, and this movie is, I think, okay for all ages, but it's not like a Lion King. It's not like, even to me, The Emperor's New Groove. It's not like a lot of these movies that kids and adults will both legitimately love. I think there's going to be a lot of kids that will like this movie a lot, and this movie was certainly enjoyable enough for adults, but no adult is going to watch this and go, man, that was amazing, because if you're an adult, you've seen this plot before, and you've seen it done better, probably. It does a lot of following the fantasy, typical outline for a movie. You've got this main character protagonist who doesn't have much of a personality other than she wants to do the thing, save the world. That's her personality trait. And then you've got a lot of these other characters that come and join the group throughout the movie, and none of them have any personality other than maybe one thing. You've got this little kid, he cooks. That's his personality. You've got this baby whose personality is that it's a baby. You've got this big tough guy who's essentially the guy from the Guardians of the Galaxy. I almost felt like this probably should have been maybe a TV show, not a movie, because it didn't feel big and important enough to be a movie, because you didn't flesh out anything. I'm not even just talking about the characters, I'm talking about the whole world. This being a fantasy movie, there's a whole brand new world they've invented, and I didn't know a lot about it by the end of the movie. There was a lot of really cool visuals. The animation's great. I just didn't know much about what was going on because not a lot of it's explained. This should have been a show where maybe not even multiple seasons, but maybe just like a mini series where you've got time to develop these characters and this world and do something more interesting with it, because it wasn't altogether that interesting. The basic idea is this stone is in a bunch of pieces. You've got these 5 different kingdoms, and each kingdom has one of the pieces of the stone, so you need to get all 5 pieces and put them together. So this main character is traveling from town to town getting the pieces, and each time she goes to a different town, she goes through the process of getting the stone. She meets a new side character, and they join the group and they go, and it becomes really repetitive and really predictable, and it almost feels like the movie is bored with it because it just skims right through it. It just goes right through it really quickly without really caring much about what's happening. It really felt like the movie was bored with the plot at times, and bored with the humor as well. This movie tries really hard to be funny throughout. There's no shortage of people telling jokes, but none of them are really funny. And I think the movie knew that. There's this moment where this character is telling a joke, and it literally is fading away. The scene is fading into the next scene in the middle of the joke, because it's like, yeah, that wasn't funny, we're moving on. And it's like, if you didn't think it was funny, why didn't you write something else then? Why didn't you fix that? You just, okay, we're moving on. And so a lot of this felt like that, this is good enough. And honestly, until the ending, I mean, I was gonna give it a 6. I was like, this is just fine. There's nothing special about this at all, literally at all. But the ending actually shocked me. The ending was surprisingly really well done. I actually really enjoyed it. Still not great, like I said, still not a classic. We're in kind of this phase with Disney where their movies are all good, but they're all dull and really boring, and nothing really separates them from being any other company to Disney. You know how when you watch like classic Disney, you know it's Disney. Like, it's a very specific feel, it's a very specific quality level, and this had high quality. It had really good animation, like I said, but to me it wasn't enough to go, oh, this is obviously Disney. It's like anybody could have made this. I know I'm being rather negative toward it, but there's such a high standard for Disney movies, though, that we're in another era where it's just like their movies aren't really memorable right now. Like, I'm glad I saw this movie because I enjoyed it enough, but I'm not really going to remember it. I'm not. Like, there's not really anything for me to... There's no reason for me to really think about this movie ever again. But I think mainly it's just because it's the high standard that I really have for Disney. Because I know Disney at different points hasn't been as good. Like, if you go back to, like, the earlier 80s and the mid-2000s, Disney sucked at certain points. Or at least not been great like we expect them to. But I grew up with the 90s and the early 2000s when they were really good. And then you go back to, I mean, obviously the golden age when they were just as good as well. So I expect that from Disney, and I know they go through different cycles because you have different animators and head animators that come and go. Like Don Bluth left, which led to the first decline, and then you had people leave to go make, DreamWorks and Nest, and people left to join Pixar, and all these different things happened. And so of course there's a natural decline when stuff like that happens. And so that honestly may still be why Disney's only just pretty good right now, in my honest opinion. I think some would argue with me like, oh, Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen, they're great. And Wreck-It Ralph was probably the best movie they've made recently. A lot of their movies lately have just only been okay. Like, you got Frozen 2, you've got Wreck-It Ralph 2, you've got Moana, and a lot of the stuff is fine. Like, there's nothing like distinctly wrong with any of it. It's just fine. But I think a lot of that is probably due to a lot of competition from other studios. So a lot of animators are completely fine with going to, a DreamWorks or a Blue Sky, although Blue Sky's, not a thing anymore. But like Illumination, like there's so many avenues for creators now, for animators now, and Disney's still like obviously the prestigious one that everybody wants to go work for. But I think a lot more people are okay now with going to other places, and so Disney doesn't necessarily have the best of the best anymore. There's a lot of people going other places, and that's not just animators, that's storytellers too. There's probably a lot of great storytellers that want to make animated stories, and they are like, I don't need to go to Disney to tell that story. I can go find perfectly fine animators somewhere else. And so I think all that's led to Disney being still really good, probably still overall the best there is, but nothing really particular stands out about them. The thing that Disney's really known for ever since they started copying Pixar and being like Pixar, because that's what they do now, they've got like really high def and really detailed things in there. Like the hair is always extremely good looking. The water has so much texture to it. There's always this great like glow of the skin. Like, it all looks so real. But I mean, obviously they're not trying to make any of the characters look real, because that's boring. They want to make them animated. They want to make them look animated and act animated. So I just don't understand the point of making the water look real. Making the world, the backgrounds look so real when the characters don't. So, I mean, I can watch that and see that it's high quality and really extremely well done, but it doesn't really change my opinion of the movie at all, because what's the point? If you're trying to make everything look as realistic as possible, sure, cool, go for it. That's its own thing, but that's not what you're doing, because the people don't look real at all. They look like animated people, which is fine. If you're gonna make an animated movie, make them animated. That's the point of making it animated. Why else would you do it? So go for it, make them animated. But if you're gonna do that, why care so much that the water looks like real water? I don't know. I'm not mad that they did it, but it's just, I'm not going to give you any bonus points while reviewing it for doing that, because to me it's pointless. Like I said, this ending though was actually surprisingly really good, because there was one moment in there that I went, oh, I didn't think that they were going to go this way with it. It wasn't a big moment, but I had to actually give it props, because everything else about this movie was so by the numbers that them finally doing something else was enjoyable. And they did that last 15-20 minutes really well, so I enjoyed that. But I don't know that that was enough, like I said, to save it. They didn't do enough to make it into anything amazing. But hey, it was enjoyable enough as an adult, and I think I was in a theater full of kids and they seemed to enjoy it. I think some of them probably got bored, but I think they ended up enjoying it. It's a perfectly fine movie in every way, and at points it's entertaining. Like, I enjoyed looking at this movie a lot. I enjoyed the world. You enjoy the banter a little bit. You enjoy the relationships between characters, but the individual characters are boring to annoying. Like, the little baby character is so annoying. Like, I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but it wasn't. It's not going to be considered one of the best Disney movies by anybody, I don't think, and I really don't think that it's going to garner any real attention at, like, I don't think you're going to see a Raya and the Last Dragon ride at Disney World anytime soon. I've got an audience. How you doing, guys? No, you can go away, that's fine. Never seen a guy with a camera before? Okay. It was entertaining enough that as an adult, I enjoyed it. It's got great imagery. It's got a fascinating enough world, even though, like I said, it could have been more in depth. It was still interesting. And, you know, you've got action, you've got humor that you may like more than I did. I think maybe some people will find it funnier than I did. And you've got a fantasy plot. You do. It's one you've seen before, but it's a serviceable enough plot. So if you wanted to see a Disney dragon movie, here you go. It's that. You won't get much more than that, but that's what it is. It kind of, honestly, in a weird way, it wasn't as good as, but it reminded me of The Incredibles 2, where that just followed kind of all of the plot points you expected it to. It did everything by the numbers. It had some entertainment to it, but it was kind of just like, okay. And I think Incredibles 2 was helped a lot by being a sequel to the first movie that was so good. This isn't a sequel to anything, so the fact that you didn't build a world is your fault. The Incredibles 2 didn't have to build as much of a world because it was already built on top of something else that was so good, so iconic. But yeah, Disney, and Pixar for that matter, hasn't been doing anything that special lately. Now, I mean, if you want to compare Pixar's most recent film, Soul was much more interesting and much more original and better done than this was. Oh, I should talk about, there was a short before this, because once again, Disney thinks they're Pixar now. And it's like, there's no real separation between Disney and Pixar anymore. Like, I know it's different studios, you've got a different group of animators, but Disney, after buying Pixar, really just kind of copied their flow, copied their style, switched to the CGI animation, which was Pixar's thing. It lost a lot of the heart that I felt like Disney had my whole life. Obviously, I mean, there was that mid-2000s lull where they were awful. You've got, like, Chicken Little and Home on the Range or whatever. You've got the awful movies, and it's not like that anymore, but it just doesn't feel any different than anything else. And I think, unfortunately, with Disney becoming like that and a lot of the other animation studios getting better, Pixar's kind of regressed as well. But anyway, I'm off topic. Disney had a little short before this movie, like Pixar always normally does, and I don't know why. It was okay. It had a lot of dancing in it, which it's an animated short, and I don't understand the appeal of animated dancing. The whole reason dancing is appealing, at least to me, is because obviously, well, there's the artistry involved. That's cool, it's artistic, it's fun to look at, but it's mainly fun to look at because you're taking a human body and you're doing these impressive technical and athletic feats. If it's animated, you just type in some numbers. Like, I mean, I know animation is more complicated than that, but I'm not impressed by the dancing. If the animation is good, cool, I'll be impressed by the animation, because animating somebody to dance and making it look realistic, yeah, that is hard. but I'm much more impressed by real people dancing. I'm much more entertained by real people dancing. I don't want to see animated people dancing. That aside, the story was cute. I enjoyed it. There's no dialogue. It's just a single song being played out, and whether they're dancing or not, they're kind of on beat to it. And that was interesting, and I enjoyed parts of it. I enjoyed the idea of it more than the execution, I think, because the idea of it was you had this couple that are older now. This is, okay, I'm going to spoil the whole thing for you. It's just a little short. So if you don't want the short spoiled, then, okay, the video's done. Just make sure to like, share, and subscribe. But, okay, so the plot of this short is you've got this old couple. The guy is grumpy and old. The woman wants him to come dance with her, and he says no. But then it starts raining, and the rain makes them young, so he dances again, and they dance, and they're in love, and they're you know, feeling it, and they're happy to be alive. But the rain is what's making them young, and the rain's moving, and so he chases the rain because he wants to stay young. He even leaves her behind to try to stay young in his chase of youth and his desire to be young. And so then eventually the rain leaves him behind, and he's old again, but then he and her are able to dance anyway, despite them being old, because they're still in love despite being old. And it's a very cute idea. It's a very cute message. Because it's like you can be young at heart even if you're old physically. There's so many different ways you can take it because there is no dialogue. There's no one specific message. There's so many little things you can take from it. I mean, you could go a million ways with it. Like I said, you could be young at heart. You could just be like, oh, well, there's beauty in age. Like, just because you're old doesn't mean you're not beautiful. You're beautiful in a different way. You're part of a life cycle, because they look and they see families and they see people of all different ages, and it's all part of a beautiful cycle. It's not just only the beginning's beautiful and the ending's disgusting. It's like the whole thing's beautiful. So there's a lot of different messages and things you can take out of it. And so I enjoyed the idea a lot. And the execution was okay. Once again, I don't know why it was animated, other than the fact that Disney did it. But I mean, Disney makes live action stuff too. But there was nothing to me that was like, this needed to be animated. Obviously, it made it easier because they were supposed to be old and young, but he could have just gotten two different actors or dancers, honestly, to do it. The whole dancing thing just wasn't really appealing to me in animated form. I felt like the execution was only okay and not great. And I had heard people on Twitter talking about it like it was the best thing ever, and it was okay. Anyway, that wraps it up. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you're new here. There's only about 39% of my viewership coming from people that are actually subscribed. So if you're watching and you enjoyed it, why not subscribe? So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.